Ready?
Ready.
Let's go.
Welcome, everyone, to the Pull the Sheep podcast with Jeff and Jana. As we always say, we are so excited that you're here supporting us. Thank you for that. We appreciate the emails and just all the great responses that we've been getting lately. It's been a lot of fun. It is very windy here in Chicago today. Jana, how are you guys doing down there in Nashville?
It's actually windy here. I
Yeah.
mean, for us, not like the windy city that you're in, but yeah,
Man,
it's windy for Nashville. 20 miles an hour for us is like, tornadoes.
yeah, right. Yeah, we got 30. You should see the furniture. And I still have my outdoor furniture on the deck upstairs, and it's like I keep hearing crashes because it's like just getting blown to the other end. It's like crazy. It's that windy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just nuts. Hey, Jana, we have a fun guest on today. Gal reached out to me after listening to one of the podcasts and said, "Hey, I'd love to be on the podcast," which we love. We love when that
Yes.
happens. So, Gal Borenstein, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, Gal, do me a favor and tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you're at today, and then we'll kind of launch into some questions.
Well, in a sense, I'm a kind of an odd bird and a kind of manifestation of what we call the American dream. I immigrated here from Israel when I was 21, and the goal was to be involved in radio, television, and film. But after doing my degree at Temple University in 2.5 years and doing a techno MBA at George Mason University in Virginia here, I found out that really kind of my interest was in technology marketing and branding. And my core skill was an author. And that really kind of launched a kind of a strange turn because I couldn't get a job with all the credentials that I had because nobody knew where to put me. He speaks different languages. What can we do with this? Can we trust it? He's not from here. All these different things were kind of obstacles, if you will, barriers to success. So after working for a year and a half for a technology company, doing all their marketing, public relations, and branding, with English being my third language, I found out that there were a lot of other companies that were like my employer, which were very smart engineers, a telecommunication company, that were small and didn't have the resources to really kind of expand on what they wanted to do in terms of communications. And the answer to that was waking up one morning and saying, I have no money. My wife is still in graduate school for a PhD program, and I make $28,000. Well, my friends that went to the same school are making 50 or 80 at the time, which was 1992, just to give you context. And I said, I'm going to take a $2,000 loan from one of those convenience checks that Visa sends you, which very, very small letter says, when you cash it, it's $500. It doesn't matter how much money you're pulling out of this credit card. So I took the money and created a company, an agency called the Borenstein Group. And I basically created a niche company in the advertising industry that focuses on helping technology companies and engineering companies where essentially they're excellent in developing genius ideas. But when it comes to communications to the outside world, they're typically introverts and they need help in kind of articulating what it is that make them different and add kind of value to what they do. So at that time, there were a lot of .coms. And fast forward 35 years later, the Borenstein Group is still in business and growing. We're one of the top 50 B2B business-to-business agencies in the country. And really kind of my biggest accomplishment, I talk about my agency, is having 3 boys that are all basically in the workforce that got their own job by being self-actualizer like their dad. So no Nepo babies. That's what I'm proud of the most.
That is fabulous. No Nepo babies. So they did not follow your path, all into the technology world.
Yes, in a very kind of interesting fashion. I told them from age 14 that if they wanted to go to law school, that was dad's dream for them. Um, I will kind of work to pay for it one
Yeah.
way. So in fact, if you go to law school, it's free. And lo and behold, they all went to UVA, were excellent students in their own areas, and none of them took me on kind of going to law school. So I was kind of disappointed for a few minutes with each one of them, but then they came back and say, "Listen, my firstborn, who's 27, said." Dad, I'm working for Google in New York at a
Oh, wow.
headquarters. Um,
Not
this
too
is
bad.
this is where the future is.
Yeah.
So just the way you basically wanted to secure a future for us as a dad, we're doing our own path. We're creating our own way to succeed. So that makes me the most proud man that I know of,
That's
and that's
great.
really kind of the number one value that I carry in everything that I do.
That is fabulous. Well, family's everything. Jeff and I talk about that a lot as well. Let's get into a little bit of this iron mark marketing or the marketing aspect of this because you're right. I mean, I'm in marketing and branding and have been for many, many years. And technology engineering, that is a little bit challenging just because it's hard to make that a warm fuzzy, right? A lot of marketing now is grassroots and how you connect to to your purchasers or to the general public through emotion, humor, stories, all of that, storytelling. So how did you do that for the engineering industry and the IT industry?
I learned something that was very interesting that my peers in the industry, advertising agencies, uh, look down at engineering companies and technology companies because typically companies in that area don't spend a lot of money on mass advertising, if you will,
Mhm.
in the old world. Uh, they just have a website or they just have a newsletter or whatever it was. And because of that kind of perception of disrespect, if you will, or no respect, I basically turned it around and said, well, let's reverse engineer the process. Let me learn about the technologies that potential clients are seeing as hot and trendy and niche the company to be the go-to for helping technology companies get to market,
Yes.
especially small to mid-sized companies where you had the chance to work with a CEO. And the CEO is a human being. And they were frustrated that they didn't have the resources. And I said, you do have the resources. You just have to kind of distribute your portfolio a little bit different in terms of how you budget for marketing, because a lot of them thought that marketing means like used car salesman, and
Mhm. Mhm.
which is not the case. You have
Right.
competitive market research. You do a lot of different things. So the ability to kind of relate to their pain points and then converting them into what are the right channels to build the brand on the outside
Mhm.
created kind of a channel for the Borenstein Group, my agency, to really kind of grow and to continuously be in business, even in the worst times in the economy, because when they come to us, they know that they can talk about the most complex problems they have, and our job is to simplify it in a way that connects with their customers and their prospects.
So, but most of the time, the customers, correct, are B2B. They're not B2C, right? If it's in engineering and ITs. So, give us three of your top sort of campaigns or top programs that you recommend, Gal, to like, let's say, a small to mid-size engineering firm or IT firm. How are you reaching those B2Bs, and how are you telling the story that each company has?
Well, the kind of the process of kind of getting customers first to the agency has really kind of been the joke of the British gardener that waters their lawn for 40 years every day. At the
Yeah.
same time, the American tourist that just came to visit says, "How is it so green?" And the gardener says, "I watered the lawn every day for the past 40 years." So, with that in mind, really kind of the three kind of approaches and very kind of important methodologies that we kind of deploy
Mhm.
across the board, especially with small to mid-sized company. Number one is to tell them how to brand forward. The fact that you're a small company does not mean that you have to be boxed in your own perception, because you might be the largest company if you niche yourself correctly.
Mhm.
So the first thing that we do is make small companies look bigger.
Ah, okay.
The philosophy behind it actually comes from psychology, whereby people, especially when they buy multi-million-dollar type of ticket items in B2B and sometimes in business to government as well, people that sell to the government, technology in Washington, D.C. area, they're when they basically win a piece of business, it's because they won on the perception that they were the safe choice, meaning they basically presented something that was safe for the buyer to buy, and that person will not get fired for buying their product or
Mhm.
service. And what makes it fascinating is that most companies go to market with the idea that uh, people should buy their product because it's the most innovative, or it's the fastest, or it's the cheapest, whatever statement you want to make. It boils down to the fact that that's not how people buy. The highest uh, level of risk creates anxiety. And if we're able through branding and marketing, soothe that anxiety, if you will, by creating a footprint of thought leadership, of content marketing, of case studies, of things that really kind of make that company, and I'm talking about a small company,
Mhm.
look bigger than just, here's the shopping cart, if you will. That works really well. So a lot of our clients over the years have been really kind of drawn to, we want to be kind of known. And I said, no, you don't. You want to be known for being a niche leader in wherever
Yes.
you are. And that
Yeah.
really worked really well. And the third is creating an understanding of what a brand is inside and out. In the technology area, most companies feel that the technology sells itself. And what they don't do is really kind of create a trust system of values
Mhm.
within the organization where all the way from the technicians and the staffers, all the way to the CEO are carrying a consistent message, because that's their narrative. And when they take that narrative to the outside, what typically happens is it falls flat or short, because people see that they don't believe in what they actually say.
Mhm.
And why is that? Because they don't trust each other. So we spend time building that trust within those companies, almost like an outside kind of advisor that comes and basically tells you your strategy is right, but you need people to coalesce around the values or the promises that you make, because these are the promises that have to be kept in the marketplace. And by doing those things, we kind of position ourselves as more than just creatives,
Mhm.
more than just we can get you into the newspaper, if you will, or online publication, but being trusted advisors. And I think at the end of the day, that's what was the staying power and still is the reason that people come to us.
I think that's wise. I mean, in my opinion, and especially being immersed in branding all the time, the more you can, and what I've always been told is the more you can sharpen your pencil the more, you don't want to be all things to all people because people don't buy that way anymore. They really want to know that they're being taken care of, that whatever they're purchasing wraps around what their needs are. It's exactly what they want. So the more you can identify that within the company and the structure, the more consistency all the players in the company have, the better it is, to brand them. That's true. Jeff, what do you think?
Well, actually, one of the points you made at the end was really kind of caught my attention, and that's the one where you're like making sure that all of your people kind of have the same message.
Yes.
And the key point of that, and I talk about this all the time with people, is that, look, and I've actually interviewed people. This is the hilarious part. You go into a company and you ask different people to tell me, what do you do with what does this business do? And sometimes you can get 20 different answers, right?
Yeah.
And it's and the bad part about that is that your people that work for you, they're your best salespeople to a certain degree at times, right? They go to a party, someone says, what do you do? They meet someone, what do you do? Yeah, we all ask that, right? What do you do? Well, it's got to be a very to the point message where they can very easily meticulous that, here's what we do. And the message is the same no matter who you are.
Yes.
And I think that's
Yep.
critical.
And absolutely. And just to kind of add to that point, we all know that what Jeff Bezos said, what is branding, which is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yes.
So when you think about it, it applies to both sides. If a company makes a promise about a new product or a new technology, that's great. But if it goes out and promises made are not promises kept, very quickly the brand basically erodes.
Yes.
People don't trust it anymore. And then everybody blames everyone when there's a safety issue, for example, with an airplane
Right.
or software that's supposed to be protecting you cybersecurity wise and just got hacked and suddenly 3 million people are affected by it because they didn't do the safety check that they needed to do or they rushed to market. So at the end of the day, looking at both inside and out the company before you launch, before you do anything when it comes to branding, know who your competition is, not just the competition that is written by the insiders of a company in a client side, but actually saying what are the perceived competitors that are out there that you don't know about. And what we tend to find is when we ask a client in the first meeting to write who are your competitors, they come up with names of IBM size companies when they're a small company. And I ask them, who in your size are your competitors? They say, oh, they're really not competitors. They're just out there. And we focus on the people and the companies that they say are out there because typically these are the people that you're competing at. You're not competing against elephants when you're a small fish.
Yeah, right. So, Gal, what are one or two things that you've noticed over the years? You've been doing this for quite a long time now, that this small to medium businesses make a mistake about. You know what I mean? Like you go in there and usually there's something there, right?
Absolutely. The first and kind of most frequent mistake that small business owners especially make, or company owners of smaller companies, 50 to 250 employees, which is, by the way, the majority of the economy in services and in products, is to really kind of get out of their own box. The box basically that made them successful typically happened because they acquired and hunted and really worked hard and got 3 or 4 clients that bought for one reason or another services or products from their company. But in reality, that could have been the cheapest product that those customers could afford. As a result, when we do the interviews of customers of that company, we find out that the reason that the company thinks people bought from them is very different than what their customers actually think about it. So when we see that misalignment, we know that this is an area that we have to focus on, because if you basically think that you basically created the most highest quality product and with the best safety record, and then you ask their customers what made you, buy the service. It was the price, or it was something tangential like customer service after hours, or whatever it may be. That disconnect can basically create an entire story that does not work in the outside world. And it also makes you invest resources in the wrong places of the company. So if you're saying you're all about innovation, but your customers don't believe that based on what you produce, you have a big problem. You can fix it, but if you don't ask this question and you don't
Yeah.
serve the stakeholders and the influencers and the decision makers on the customer side, a client that is trying to sell something can fail very quickly or over time, or just go out of business because they're not relevant anymore because nobody asked that question.
Right.
The second most kind of common event that happens in companies is, again, the self-perception of being small, as in unable to compete against larger entities. So there are a lot of situations where smaller companies indeed cannot really compete with their advertising dollars, with their army of brand ambassadors or networking business developers that would go to every trade show. That might be true. But also, if you look at any market, especially in business to business, you find that it's a bunch of niches. It's a bunch of like very specific lanes. And if you focus on the lane that you're really good at, where you have reasonable profit margin and you can continue to grow because that technology is not going away, it's actually getting more paid attention to. I basically spend a lot of times with CEOs explaining to them that if you basically try to own a niche, you're likely to be very successful because you can analyze the problems of the industry and then come back with a solution. While the other competitors that you have, especially in technology, there's an old adage that says sometimes technology companies have a solution in search of a problem instead of a problem with a solution, because they did not ask what's going on in the marketplace beyond what their own kind of same like-mind thinking process is happening. So those are kind of the most common, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head there, because a lot of people don't ask that question. So I think it's pretty amazing. We have to wind things down, but I don't want to leave without real quick, your book, Don't Believe the Hype, that came out. Tell us a little bit about that, would you please?
Sure. Don't believe the hype when trust is on the line is in the digital and AI age, really kind of was written as a letter, started as a letter to CEOs that are seeing the erosion of trust in their products and their services because they have not taken the time to understand what is going on the outside of the world, because corporations before AI and digital could keep their secrets. Now there's no more secrets. And the worst part about being in today's society post-COVID is that all personal communications and all kind of conversations where you can create relationships have gone by the wayside and been replaced by, at best, a video call that people are talking about a very specific agenda. There's no more lunch that you can take a client to talk about your business. There's no networking. Most people on a video call don't even show their face because they're not comfortable. And then you give up on communication and you give it to AI, which produces a bunch of communications that are not based on the company values. And worse, social media comes to play, and you have a lot of reviews that appear as an employer, for example, with Glassdoor, or about your product on Trustpilot, or Amazon if you're buying products. And the combination of all this stuff created an erosion of trust to a point where people don't know what to trust, what is real, and what is not. And we're in an environment where we have fake news, we have fake reviews, we have fake narratives, and it's very hard to tell, especially when you have deep fake that can create a statement that the CEO said that they never did, or somebody takes advantage of another intellectual property and there's no way to protect it. So the book really goes through the idea that the framework of trust is based on, number one, having the executive management identify what are the values and what are the things that represent the brand if everything works out. The second is make sure that your people are connected to the culture of the values that the management put in place. And the third is make sure that the lowest totem pole in your organization, folks that basically rarely get to know what the strategy of the company is, are involved in making the company successful. So they don't just get a newsletter once a quarter. They have town halls. They have things that really can bring issues together. And when you have the entire company believe in the same thing, then you can go out and say, what's the best way to capture new customers that believe in the same things, which again goes back to what a brand is.
Yeah, love it, love it, love it. Don't believe the hype. Go look it up and
Yes.
see if you can do it. Jana, before we kind of wrap up, any final thoughts from you?
No, I think this is interesting.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is that it goes back to what we've been talking about, Jeff, through our leadership, training and everything. You
Yeah.
have to know what your brand is. You have to know, you have to be the expert, like you said, the trusted expert at what you do. And you have to continue to hone that and, refine it and make it relevant for today's needs, what people need today. So I think that's great. And it's interesting that it's in technology, just like it's in, a shopping,
Yeah.
food or a purse or, a pet item. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
You got to be real,
Yeah.
no BS.
Love it. Love it. Well, if people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
The easiest way is to go on LinkedIn and connect through there. And you're more than welcome also to go to Amazon, where you find my 5 books. The 2 most recent are Don't Believe the Hype, and the second one is called Beating Goliath with AI, which is a handbook for small business owners.
Awesome.
To embrace AI instead of thinking that it's going to replace them, displace them, or destroy their business. It's quite the opposite, but it takes some steps to do that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Gal, thanks so much for your insight. Very informative. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. Thanks for being on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
To all our listeners out there, we hope that you enjoyed today's session. We were excited about it. Reach out to Gal if you want to. That's Gal, by the way, Borenstein, and look him up on LinkedIn. For Jan and I, we're always here if you need help with any kind of leadership development. If you just have a couple of questions, you're not sure what to do, costs nothing to give us a quick email, Jana@janalandry.com or Jeff@pullthechute.net, and let's set up a 30-minute call and see how we can find some answers for you. So until the next time, folks, stay safe and be healthy.